Someone in Tehran made a phone call. Within minutes of Iran's Guardian Council officially announcing the name of the new supreme leader, a secure line connected Tehran to diplomatic back channels that eventually reached Washington. The message was brief. The message was clear. And according to sources with knowledge of the communication, the message was designed to ensure that President Trump understood exactly what had just changed. The Islamic Republic continues. Our position is unchanged. Your demands remain rejected. That was it. No negotiation, no opening. No indication that leadership transition had created the opportunity Washington spent months anticipating. Trump's response, according to 3 separate sources inside the White House who spoke on condition of anonymity, was immediate and visceral. Not happy. Those 2 words have been repeated across national security circles since the announcement. Not happy. Not the strategic chaos they expected. Not the internal power struggle they planned to exploit. Not the moderate reformist who might seek accommodation with the West. Iran just named a new supreme leader, and everything Washington assumed about what would happen next was wrong. Let me tell you who now controls the Islamic Republic of Iran, because understanding this man is essential to understanding why Trump's Iran strategy just collapsed. The Assembly of Experts, the 88-member body constitutionally responsible for selecting Iran's supreme leader, convened an emergency session within hours of Ayatollah Khamenei's death. The deliberation was expected to take days. It took 7 hours. The selection was unanimous. The new supreme leader is not a moderate. He is not a reformist. He is not someone who rose through Iran's political establishment by advocating accommodation with the West. He is a hardliner's hardliner. Someone whose entire career has been defined by opposition to American influence and commitment to the revolutionary principles established in 1979. He is younger than any supreme leader Iran has ever had. He is more connected to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps than Khamenei ever was. And he has spent the last decade preparing for exactly this moment, building relationships across every power center in the Iranian system, ensuring that when succession came, his position would be unassailable. The CIA's assessment of likely succession candidates, prepared over years of analysis, listed 12 possible names. This man was ranked 11th, not because he lacked qualifications, because American analysts assumed the Iranian establishment would seek someone more amenable to eventual negotiation. They assumed wrong. Iran's new supreme leader has already issued his first decree. The war continues until American forces leave the region entirely. No conditions, no negotiation, no off-ramp. Let me explain why Trump called an emergency National Security Council meeting within 2 hours of the announcement. Because the implications of this succession extend far beyond personality. The entire American strategy for this conflict has been built on a single assumption: that Khamenei's death would create instability in Tehran, that competing factions would fight for control, that the chaos of transition would weaken Iran's military coordination, that a new leader, whoever emerged, would seek to consolidate domestic power before continuing external conflicts. That assumption shaped every military decision of the past several months. The timing of strikes, the targets selected, the intensity of pressure. All of it was designed to maximize Iranian internal stress at the moment of succession, to force a new leader into a position where negotiation seemed preferable to continued conflict. Instead, the opposite happened. The succession was seamless. The military command structure never wavered. The missile launches continued throughout the transition without any reduction in tempo. And the new supreme leader's first public statement explicitly rejected every condition the United States has demanded. Trump's maximum pressure strategy assumed pressure would create cracks. The cracks never appeared. The pressure produced unity. The death of Khamenei, which was supposed to be the beginning of Iranian collapse, has instead become a rallying point for nationalist consolidation. The emergency meeting at the White House lasted 4 hours. No statement has been released. No new policy has been announced. And sources describe the president as furious that the strategic opportunity he expected has not materialized. This is the scenario that Iran analysts warned about for years. Warnings that were systematically dismissed because they contradicted the narrative Washington preferred. Professor Ervind Abrahamian, one of the foremost Western scholars of Iranian political systems, wrote in 2022 that American assumptions about post-Khamenei chaos reflected fundamental misunderstanding of how the Islamic Republic actually functions. He argued that the system had been designed specifically to survive leadership transition, with redundant power structures that would maintain continuity regardless of individual personalities. His analysis was dismissed as academic abstraction disconnected from policy reality. Former CIA Iran analyst Kenneth Pollack warned that succession planning in Tehran was far more advanced than American intelligence recognized. He said the assumption that Khamenei's death would trigger factional warfare ignored the extensive preparation that had been underway for over a decade. His warnings were noted in classified briefings. Nothing changed. The Rand Corporation published a comprehensive study of Iranian succession scenarios in 2021. Their conclusion? The most likely outcome was rapid, unified transition to a hardline successor, not the chaos and fragmentation that American strategy assumed. The study was cited. The recommendations were ignored. The strategy proceeded unchanged. Everyone who actually understood Iranian political dynamics knew that succession was unlikely to create the opportunity Washington anticipated. The people making decisions chose to believe otherwise, because the alternative required admitting that their strategy had no viable endgame. Here's what makes Iran's new supreme leader strategically different from Khamenei, and why that difference terrifies American military planners. Khamenei came to power in 1989, inheriting a system built by Khomeini and a country exhausted by 8 years of war with Iraq. His leadership was characterized by caution, strategic patience, careful calculation of risks. He authorized proxy operations and missile development, but always with an eye toward regime survival above all other considerations. The new supreme leader has no such caution. He rose through the revolutionary system during years when American sanctions were at their most intense, when regime survival seemed most threatened, when the pressure Washington applied was designed to break Iranian will. Instead of breaking, he became more committed. Instead of seeking accommodation, he became more radical. He views compromise with America not as pragmatic necessity, but as existential betrayal. He has said publicly that the 2015 nuclear deal was a strategic error that weakened Iran without providing lasting benefit. He has argued that the only security for the Islamic Republic lies in military capability sufficient to make American attack unthinkable. And now, he has that capability. The missiles that have been striking American bases, the drones that have been overwhelming Israeli defenses, the hypersonic weapons that neither the United States nor Israel can intercept, all of it was developed during his rise through the system. He knows these capabilities intimately. He helped build them. Khamenei authorized their development. The new supreme leader will authorize their use without the hesitation that characterized his predecessor. This is the calculation that produced Trump's "not happy" response. Not just that the succession was smooth, but that it produced a leader who is younger, more aggressive, more confident in Iranian military power, and less interested in negotiation than anyone Washington ever anticipated dealing with. Within 24 hours of assuming power, Iran's new supreme leader delivered a televised address that American analysts are still parsing for implications. The speech lasted 47 minutes. It was broadcast across Iranian state media and simultaneously translated for international distribution. And it contained a message that left no ambiguity about what comes next. The era of American intimidation is finished. The era of sanctions is finishing. The era of threats that were never followed by consequences is over. We are not negotiating from weakness. We have nothing to negotiate. He specifically addressed Trump by name. Not the American president. Not the White House. Donald Trump personally. Mr. Trump believed that killing our commanders, sanctioning our economy, and threatening our cities would bring the Islamic Republic to its knees. He was wrong. His predecessor was wrong. His successor will be wrong. We do not kneel. This is not diplomatic posturing. This is not an opening position designed to be walked back in negotiations. This is a doctrinal statement from a leader who has spent his entire career arguing that accommodation with America is impossible and confrontation is inevitable. The speech ended with a declaration that Iranian military operations would continue until every American soldier has left our region and every American sanction has been lifted. No conditions, no timeline, no indication that anything short of complete American withdrawal would satisfy Iranian demands. Trump has spent months assuming that sufficient pressure would eventually bring Iran to negotiate. The new supreme leader just announced that negotiation is not coming. Now let's talk about money, because the economic implications of this leadership transition are more significant than any military consideration. Before Khamenei's death, there were quiet discussions, back-channel communications, tentative explorations of what a post-conflict economic arrangement might look like. European intermediaries were involved. Gulf states were facilitating. The assumption was that eventually, when both sides were exhausted, economic incentives would provide the foundation for settlement. Those discussions are finished. Iran's new supreme leader has explicitly rejected any arrangement that involves Western economic integration. His economic vision for Iran is autarky, supported by Eastern partnerships. China, Russia, the expanding BRICS framework, a parallel economic system that doesn't require American permission or European cooperation. And here's what that means for American economic leverage. $500 billion in frozen Iranian assets and blocked transactions have been Washington's primary non-military pressure tool. The assumption was that eventually Iran would want access to that money badly enough to make concessions. The new supreme leader has announced that those assets are already lost, and Iran's economic future lies in relationships that don't depend on American financial infrastructure. This isn't bluster. China has already indicated willingness to expand economic partnership. Russia is providing technology and military cooperation. India is negotiating rupee-based oil purchases that bypass dollar systems entirely. The sanctions architecture that America spent decades building is being routed around. And the leader who just took power in Tehran has no interest in seeking American approval for Iranian economic activity. The leverage is evaporating, and there's nothing Washington can do to stop it. Here's what military planners are telling the White House about what this transition means for ongoing operations. The war is not ending soon. Every assumption about conflict termination that involved Iranian leadership transition creating negotiation opportunities is now invalid. The new supreme leader has no incentive to seek settlement and every incentive to demonstrate strength in his opening months. Escalation is more likely, not less. A new leader consolidating power will want to demonstrate resolve. Successful military operations against American targets serve his domestic political needs. Backing down serves nothing. Iranian coordination is actually improving. The transition removed whatever friction existed between Khamenei's office and IRGC operational command. The new supreme leader has direct relationships with military commanders that his predecessor lacked. Decision-making will be faster, not slower. And the weapons Iran has been holding in reserve, the advanced systems kept back during the attrition phase, are now more likely to be deployed. A new leader demonstrating capability has different calculations than an aging leader preserving options. The Pentagon assessment, delivered to Trump during the emergency meeting, reportedly concluded that American casualties are likely to increase in the coming weeks, not decrease. The transition has made Iran more dangerous, not less. The analysts warned them. The scholars published papers. The intelligence assessments predicted unified succession, not chaos. They assumed that pressure would create cracks. The cracks never appeared. They assumed that transition would create opportunity. The opportunity never materialized. They assumed that a new leader would be weaker, more tentative, more willing to negotiate. Instead, they got someone stronger, more confident, and more committed to confrontation than his predecessor ever was. Not happy. That's the president's response to discovering that his entire strategy was built on assumptions that were wrong. That the billions spent, the soldiers lost, the alliances strained, have not produced the outcome he promised. That Iran is not closer to capitulation. Iran is further from it than ever. The Islamic Republic has a new supreme leader tonight. He is younger. He is more aggressive. He has explicitly rejected every American demand. And he has the military capability to back up that rejection. The war Trump thought he was winning just became a war without any visible end. History rarely cooperates with the assumptions of those who start wars. This week, history delivered that lesson directly to the White House. And somewhere in Tehran, a new supreme leader is preparing his next move, while Washington scrambles to understand how everything they planned for turned out to be everything that didn't happen.